Hi everyone, welcome to GoLocal Live and Smart Health. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel. I'd like to welcome on Dr. Stephen Salloway, an Alzheimer's expert here to tell us a little bit about the latest in research and development and what's taking place here in Rhode Island. Dr. Salloway, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Kate, for having me on.
And if you hadn't seen the preview, just want to give you a primer about Dr. Salloway. He is the Martin M. Zucker Professor of Psychiatry and Human Behavior at Brown, as well as Professor of Neurology, the chief of Neurology and Director of Memory and Aging, the program at Butler Hospital as well. So steeped here in the community and at the Warren Alpert Medical School at Brown University. And June is Dementia and Brain Awareness Month. So I appreciate your taking the time to come here into the studio. And with this Awareness Month, where we're at in 2019, what is the medical community really looking to get out there in terms of information that the public should really know about?
Well, I think the biggest thing, Kate, is that Alzheimer's is the health crisis of our time, because there are so many people affected, and that number is going to grow as the population ages, and aging is the biggest risk factor for conditions like Alzheimer's, and the cost of care is greater than that for heart disease and for cancer now, and that's going to grow. So it's something we really have to take seriously, and we're working very hard for a breakthrough so that we can. The goal is really to prevent Alzheimer's.
And one of the things here in Rhode Island with the research taking place at the Warren Alpert Medical School, that research component is studying a population and being able to do a longitudinal study, taking a look at the population both at a snapshot in time and over a period of time. Brown is really looking to get a registry, taking a look at folks here, taking a look at their brains, because it is incredibly important to be able to study them over that time and those effects and what might be causes. So talk with us a little bit about this registry and what the goals ultimately are to get folks involved.
Well, one thing that's really exciting is Rhode Island is helping to lead the way in the fight against Alzheimer's, and I think we have Rhode Island and Brown are the right size for this. It's a real person-to-person kind of state, and what's so great about working in our program, because we're focused on prevention of Alzheimer's, is we have so many great volunteers. So we have an Alzheimer's prevention registry where people can either sign up online or over the phone and find out what's going on with the research and see if that's something that they're interested in doing. And we just have the most inspiring volunteers, because usually the people who are most motivated are people that have had Alzheimer's in their family. So they know what it is, they cared for a parent or a sibling, and they don't want to get it, and they definitely don't want their children, and they want to protect their children and grandchildren. So that motivates a lot of people to sign up and get involved, and I tell you, Rhode Islanders are the best. So, and Brown, I'm so excited, is really making a major commitment to fight diseases like Alzheimer's. So the university, you may have heard, got a $100 million gift from the Carney family earlier this year to rename our Brain Science Institute. We've got a $50 million gift to work on disease-oriented research like Alzheimer's. We got a special gift to hire new faculty to do Alzheimer's research, and we have 2 great professors starting next month who are world-class, and more to come. So it's a very exciting time, and I think we're in the right place to really make progress.
And you have been at the forefront of drug development and research, showing so much promise, and then also there's some heartbreak.
Well, you have to have a thick skin, you have to be pretty dedicated and resilient if you want to be in research, in any field of research. But Alzheimer's is a tough disease because it has a lot to do with aging, and so we're sort of fighting time. But we made a ton of progress. So one thing, the reason we can do prevention research at all is that we now have developed better tests. So we can do a cheek swab and see if a person is carrying 1 or 2 copies of the most common risk gene for Alzheimer's. So we have swab events we call swab parties, where people can find out about this risk for Alzheimer's. We now have brain scans that can see the buildup of the proteins in the brain, the plaques and the tangles, safely many years before memory loss.
Okay.
These are things we didn't have before.
Yeah.
And it only happened because Rhode Islanders and people across the world, but across the U.S. And other countries, have volunteered to make this happen. So now we have the tools to start to detect who's at risk well before memory loss. That's where the prevention comes in. And now we're developing treatments to actually remove the proteins and hopefully slow down the memory loss. And I think we're going to have the biggest impact in the stage while memory's still okay.
And so what happens when that person goes in, they do the cheek swab, they say you have the gene? If you're talking with folks who are in these types of situations, what's next?
Yeah, well, it's a great question because I think the fundamental question is, do people want to find out? Is it right for
Yes.
them? And that's each person has to come to their own conclusion about that, what's right for them. I mentioned people who have Alzheimer's in their family, they're particularly motivated because, and they may, as we get older, all of us have some memory symptoms. They go in the room, why did I go there? You try to come up with a word or a name. You misplace things, you say, oh my God, there's Alzheimer's and so forth. So we're all aware that something, our memory isn't as good as it used to be. That's usually mostly part of aging. But if you've had it in your family, you're even more hyper aware about it. So it depends. The first question is, and we ask people this, what would the impact be of finding out more about your Alzheimer's risk? And you have to come up with an answer that this is something that they can handle, they want to do. The nice thing is, if you turn out to be at higher risk, we're testing medicines or treatments to actually lower risk, and so you can actually do something about it. So I think the biggest point is fighting back.
Okay.
When you're passive and you're at risk for Alzheimer's and you're just worrying about it and not doing anything.
Worrying won't do
well,
anything. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't advance our knowledge or our ability to treat Alzheimer's or to prevent it. But if you come forward, most people, you can ask the people, our volunteers, they are just really psyched and they fire us up because they really feel like they're doing something important. And they are. They're really making a difference.
So let's talk a little bit about the differentiation between Alzheimer's and dementia.
Okay, that's a question that most people have. So dementia is a general term that means that there's memory loss that interferes with day-to-day functioning.
Okay.
But it doesn't tell the cause. There are 100 things or more that can cause dementia. So football players, if they get knocked around too much, can get dementia. People with Parkinson's disease or a stroke or HIV or too much alcohol, many things cause dementia. Alzheimer's is a disease, the most common cause of dementia, and it's made up, what happens in Alzheimer's is that proteins start to build up. So one is called amyloid protein in plaques, and it gets deposited in between the nerve cells. And then that stimulates another protein over time to build up called tau protein into tangles inside nerve cells. And that happens years before the memory loss.
Okay.
That's why we can do something about it while memory is normal. If it keeps going and we don't interfere, then what happens is the nerve cells start to get smaller and the connections between the nerve cells break down, and that's where the memory loss comes in, and that's why people have trouble functioning day to day. It turns out that healthy lifestyle can actually promote brain health. So if you exercise vigorously, eat a Mediterranean type diet, stay mentally active and socially active, keep your heart in good shape, you actually protect the brain against Alzheimer's. So there are things that we can do, all of us can do, to try to keep our brains healthy as we get older.
So when folks often ask that question, is there going to be a cure for Alzheimer's around the corner? And you talk about addressing it at that early stage of when that plaque buildup occurs. Is that the critical juncture to, again, achieving that quote-unquote cure?
The earlier we go, the more effective we're going to be at either preventing or delaying Alzheimer's. So this year, we're going to be starting our first trial for people who are at high risk without any plaque, before the plaque is even built up. So we're years away from the memory loss. So I'm very excited about that because we're moving the clock back and back, further back,
Yep.
while the person is still completely well and still has time before any memory loss would set in.
So would that be a drug that would preclude the buildup of the start to the buildup of that
Right.
plaque?
So we're going to be testing, we just announced this a month ago, 2 new prevention trials will be starting in 2020, early in 2020, to try to keep the plaque from building up and hopefully delay memory loss or prevent it completely if we could. So there are treatments like that. It's what's really exciting, and people have to be patient. This is a hard disease, but we are definitely making progress. I think we're going to get one treatment that shows benefit, and we're going to build on that and keep adding to that. One really exciting thing is that there's a lot of discovery going on in all areas of medicine that apply also to Alzheimer's, that we're able, you may have heard about gene editing. Well, it turns out for a disease like sickle cell disease, that causes red blood cells to clump up and either cause strokes or painful events for children who are afflicted with this thing. You can now edit genes in those people who carry a mutation that causes those abnormal red blood cells, and you can make the red cells normal. And right now, there's been a small group of children who have been cured of sickle cell through gene editing. So that same type of technique is going to be applied to Alzheimer's disease and other serious conditions like that. So that we need this era of discovery. Brown is very committed to it, as among many other institutions around in the U.S. and around the world. And I'm really excited about it. But we need volunteers. So we need you folks out there to find out more what's going on. You can find out through our prevention registry, and then see if there's something that you want to participate in. Another very exciting thing that's just starting up, Rhode Island's taking a lead role, is looking at changes in the eye as an early sign of Alzheimer's. It turns out some of these proteins also build up inside the retina. And we can do a retinal scan, a regular eye exam that eye doctors do to look for these changes. So that's a very easy way for people to get involved. That's going to be starting in the next month or so.
Well, a lot of exciting advancements taking place at the Warren Alpert Medical School at Brown, as well as Butler Hospital. And Doctor, I very much appreciate your taking the time to come in, share with us a little of where we're at here in 2019. And I hope we have the opportunity to have you back in when there's some potential for some very exciting news in the near future.
Well, thank you so much, Kay. We really appreciate it.
Dr.
Okay.
Salloway, thank you
Okay.
so much. And thank you for watching the Smart Health segment. We're going to be right back with our next guest here on GoLocal Live, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back downtown here in just a minute.